a third way through the regular season. I think a decent time to take a look at what Michigan's freshman quarterback, Bryce Underwood, has done so far this year. An interesting start, I would say, because you have two really tough environments that you played in. Couldn't be, tested really much more, considering when you look back at especially recent Michigan schedules. You used to play Notre Dame before that, but so you'd have some big showdown. But in the month of September, including a month where you have a bye, you go at Oklahoma, you go at Nebraska. So those are tough. You have a couple home games against group of 5 teams as well. He's completed 56.9% of his passes. It's 58 of 102, 733 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick, 1 fumble on a scramble there against Nebraska. 7.2 yards per attempt. That's 14th in the Big Ten right now. Actually ahead of Drew Aller at 7.1. He's been off to kind of a weird start to his own season here, heading into his big game against Oregon. But 22 carries, 169 yards, 3 touchdowns, taken 4 sacks, and still averaging over 7 yards a carry. The biggest thing is kind of almost what the cliche is, in my opinion, the cliche all offseason that we kept getting from coaches and teammates, that he's mature beyond his years, the poise, the maturity is there. That actually is what stands out the most to me through these games, outside of just the talent, the perfect throws on some passes. They're not all perfect, but he has the ability to make, a lot of throws that other guys around the country can't. So I think it's been a really good start for him and a lot to build on. And you can see where the potential is going to go with this.
Yeah, and the accuracy is ridiculous. Yeah. And let's be honest, he's 104th in the country in passing efficiency, I think it is. And it would be much higher than that if his receivers could catch the damn ball. I think he's had at least 10 to 15 drops, if I'm not mistaken. I know of 10 at least. And I think there are some other ones too that could have been caught. I don't know if they called Channing Goodwin's a drop in the end zone on a beautifully thrown ball against Nebraska. He should have caught that pass. Don't care what anybody says. So to me, he's even better than the numbers have shown. And you can see the talent, guys, out there. It is hard to win at Nebraska with any quarterback, let alone a freshman quarterback. And I understand that Nebraska's defenses and all that, I think they're probably a little overrated, and we're overrated going in. But the poise that he showed there, the speed on the draw play, which we knew was there, was fantastic. He knows where to go with the ball. I really like this kid. This kid is going to be the best quarterback in Michigan history by the time it's all said and done, and he's on the way. So I think they're going to continue to find ways to employ him in the running game. And they've got to have, when Hogan Hansen comes back too, when he has his full complement of receivers, guys that can actually catch the ball, even though Hogan Hansen is a tight end, I think you're going to see them use him like they did Colston Loveland at times. But to me, then we will see a little bit more of Bryce Underwood as well. So I love what he brings to the table, love his maturity on the field, and really his decision-making. So it's been a pleasure to cover this guy. I can't believe that we get to do it, hopefully for 2.5 more years.
He's been really good. And I think that on a team that had a lot of question marks coming into the season, including one of them being, for as good as we think Bryce Underwood is and was going to be, you're still starting a true freshman quarterback who turned 18, 10 days before the season started? To me, he's one of their most known commodities at this point. I think the ball placement has been really good. I think that the decision-making has been crisp. Michigan's done a fairly good job protecting him, at least in terms of only 4 sacks so far this year, 27 pressures, 12 of them came in that Oklahoma game. Pro Football Focus only has him at 1 big-time throw, which they call a pass with excellent ball location and timing, generally thrown further down the field and or into a tighter window. I would disagree with that. I think he's had more than a few of those so far this year. The one that they did chart was that pass along the sideline to Hogan Hansen in the Central Michigan game. 4 turnover-worthy plays. Of course, he had the pick against CMU, just kind of a heat check throw down the field. But overall, you just look at a guy who has a command of, he does everything he's asked to do right now. I think he does it extremely well. I think he's very crisp with, some of the run fakes on the play action or the RPOs. I think that the last few weeks, we've seen him quick to kind of get on his horse and make a play with his legs, which is something that we didn't see in those first few weeks. And some of it may have been how they decided to call the plays. Some of it, like Sherrone Moore said this week, that they had some of those maybe dialed up or ready in the playbook for the first 2 games of the year, and it just wasn't quite there for him yet. So really pleased with the progress. I think the things that ail this passing game really don't have anything to do with him. It's 11 drops through 4 games. That's way too high of a number. There was 4 in the opener, 2 in weeks 2 and 3, and then 3 in last week at Nebraska. So that's got to get cleaned up. But when it comes to everything else, he's been, I think, about as good as I thought he would be, and maybe in some respects a little bit better.
Yeah, and I think Chip Lindsey is doing a good job, especially the last couple of weeks, kind of figuring out what works with this offense, what they can do well, putting more responsibility on the shoulders of Bryce Underwood, which I think, to your point, Anthony, he's one of their known commodities right now. You have to do that, especially as the offensive line continues to come together. They made some big strides here recently. You're going to have to make some more as the competition gets a little bit stiffer. Again, Nebraska may have one of the weaker D-lines in the Big Ten at this point, but that was a nice confidence boost. You're going to the bye. You can get a little bit healthier. It was interesting. I was watching yesterday the Blueprint. Devin Gardner and Jake Butt have a podcast together, and they were breaking down the play where Donovan McCulley, throws it to McCulley, a really good throw into double coverage. Probably shouldn't have thrown it, and McCulley almost comes down with it. They go and review it. Of course, it doesn't stand. But just the way, Donovan McCulley's being double teamed. Everyone else is one-on-one, and nobody else could beat their man. Bryce Underwood throws into the double team. Like things like that when it comes to the receivers. If you're one-on-one and they're going to double Donovan McCulley, someone has to be able to get open. I know Nebraska's got a good secondary, but as Jake Butt and Devin Gardner were saying, like, this is Michigan. This is disrespectful the way they're covering them. So I thought that was really good stuff. People should check that out if they haven't. But the receivers have to start getting open more. I think to your point, Chris, with Hogan Hansen hopefully getting back at some point, he will help as a tight end there. But otherwise you got to try some other guys out because they've not only have to catch it, but that you can't have defenses just focusing on one guy and not respecting the rest of your offense in the pass game.
Yeah, and that was a big time throw, by the way.
Yes.
Even if Pro Football Focus doesn't think so,
Yeah.
That was the Samaj Morgan throw on the touchdown. There was a touchdown pass to Marlon Klein that was a great throw. He's had a ton of them, so I don't know what the hell they're looking at. But regardless, that's a great point. They need other guys to step up. But these are things, guys, that we addressed, that we said in the spring, and just like we said about the quarterbacks a year ago. They needed to get better in the wide receiver room and maybe get some different personnel. They needed to be better in the offensive line room. And I think, they're making strides. But again, Central Michigan and Nebraska are not the standards here. I do want to give them credit, though. I think Jake Guarnera in the lineup has really made a difference. Watch him play. He plays with an edge. I don't want to see him come off the field again. He needs to start. No disrespect to Brady Norton or Nathan Afobe, who's gotten better and looks better at left guard than he did at right guard. But I think Gio El-Hadi will take that spot back. I think the best 5 is going to be a combination of El-Hadi and Guarnera there at guard. So, but to me, it's the receivers that have been the biggest disappointment, and it's not a surprise. And there have been times when Goodwin has gotten open and he just hasn't caught the ball. So he's got to get 2 hands on that ball and he's got to catch it. He's got to bring it in. We heard good things about him in the offseason, but if you're a receiver that can't catch but can only run good routes, that doesn't make you a good receiver. You got to be able to catch the ball. So that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out, fellas. And if there's anybody else that might get an opportunity, maybe a Kendrick Bell, right? Maybe he comes in there and gets a shot, and maybe even Peyton O'Leary. I hate to say it, but Peyton hasn't gotten much time. We know that he can catch the ball. I don't think I've ever seen him drop a pass, maybe one, but I know he's got good hands. So at some point, if it's not working, you got to try something else. And I think the same would be said for the punt return as well, with Samaj Morgan back there. That is a debacle at times, and 80th out of 81 that have been in the country that are ranked, I think. And that's just it's not good enough. He's putting the ball on the ground. That whole unit, really, when they're running into each other back there, needs to be improved as well. As Biff Poggi said, as the interim coach filling in for Sherrone Moore, he said it's a bad look. It certainly was when you got a couple of guys running into each other there and one running into your return man.
Well, and part of it too, they said the last couple of weeks that they rededicated themselves to the how, and that's attention to detail. That's having all of your ducks in a row. And when you drop the football and you run into guys in punt returns and you don't field punt returns cleanly or make bad decisions there, that is a lack of focus. That is a lack of focus and fundamentals and just bad decision making. So I think that this has to be a week for them where they are challenging all of those guys in that wide receiver room to like, listen, if you take your eye off the ball for a second, and that's both figuratively and literally, we will put someone else out there, because at some point, some of these drops, some of these miscues are going to cost you a football game. And thankfully it hasn't so far. That Oklahoma game was kind of a debacle across the board on offense, but you don't want to get put into a spot where not having the right discipline or focus in a key situation is what costs you a football game. And that's what they need to figure out.
They do. Last thing with Bryce Underwood that came to mind for me were 3 drives. One of them, the 2-minute drive before half against New Mexico, the 2-minute drive before half against Central Michigan, both resulted in touchdowns with just seconds left on the clock. 9 seconds left against CMU. I believe it was 21 or 23 against New Mexico. They had a little bit of time to spare there. And then the long drive in the fourth quarter, 8 minutes and 46 seconds, 16 plays, 77 yards, which put them up 2 possessions and really a drive they had to have. Everyone was thinking it at the same time before that drive. They need to have a long drive finally. And part of it was they were scoring so quickly, so you can't really fault them for it earlier in the game. But they needed a long drive that resulted in points to put them up 2 possessions, and they had it. A lot of that had to do with the ground game on the last one I'm talking about, but there were some big throws by Bryce Underwood. There were 2 key throws on third down. One of them to Samaj, he makes a play, right? Sometimes it's just a simple play, getting the ball out on target enough so that Samaj Morgan can make a play with the football, pick up the first. And then Justice Haynes made a play in the screen game to pick up another third down conversion. But those bode well. The 2-minute, it's stuff that we've seen Michigan struggle with in the past. And you think about the fact that this is a freshman executing in some of those big time moments.
Yeah, and a big time throw on the seam route, remember, to Channing Goodwin?
Channing, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's another big time throw and you were talking about that 2-minute drive. So the drive at the end of the game there, the 9-minute drive, 8 minutes and 50 seconds or whatever, was a thing of beauty. And that takes some special stuff, man. I don't care if you're a freshman or not, but I really thought the play calling was great on that drive, the way he mixed it up. There was a series before, a 3-and-out where they threw 3 times. The first, and it would have worked if Samaj Morgan had just caught the pass right on first down, but he didn't. And then you have two more passes and you punt. That was right after the 2-play drive in which Jordan Marshall, I believe, scored on the 54-yarder or whatever it was. So I really thought, okay, Chip, I understand, and it's like Sherrone Moore said, the pass might be there, but you know what? You've got a run offense that is really just gashing these guys at times. You got to use some of it. But it wasn't predictable in how he did it. There was a third down run, I think, a 3rd and long, if I'm not mistaken, or a 2nd and long. So I loved the variety, and I love the way they use him and trust him really to run those plays, because if they're in 3rd and long, they know that he can still pick it up. His ability to throw on the run when he's running either way, guys, is ridiculous, right? When he's running left and throwing back right, he's still right on the money. And just a pleasure to watch, a pleasure to cover. Again, we're kind of spoiled here, fellas, and hopefully they go to the portal or whatever next year and get him a few more receivers so that we can see exactly who he is when he's got some elite receivers, because that's going to be damn near unstoppable.
Real quick, the play you're talking about, you're exactly right, Chris. The 3rd and 10 on the Nebraska 39, they not only want to pick up a first down here, you want to get into pretty comfortable field goal range for Dominic Zavada, and Justice Haynes found that kind of lane to the left. He picks up 19. That was huge in a play that probably hasn't got talked about enough, but you're completely right. And they caught them off guard a little bit there.
Yep. Great play coverage. Great play calling. I love what Chip Lindsey does. And it's not just a guess. He understands where the defense is going to be and what they're probably preparing for. I'm sorry, guys, he's a great OC. And a lot of people are going to say, well, look at the Oklahoma game. I don't think that was a fully his responsibility, and guys certainly didn't execute either. So, but I think watching him in a game and then watching what he does in the fourth quarter, plays that have set up other plays is what the way John Jansen describes it, right? They might be expecting one thing, get him to one defense so that you can do something else. I think Chip Lindsey's pretty damn good at that.
Yeah, overall pleased with how it looks as a baseline. Now, there are certain areas where you would hope in October, in early November, and in late November, there are steps forward that are taken. But as far as Underwood goes, could not be more impressed with just how ready he looks to play. There are things that he's got to work on too, but he's just a good Michigan starting quarterback. He's not good for a freshman. He's not good relative to what last year was. He's just good, and it's going to be fun to watch him grow.